From the beginning of time, one question has haunted the human heart more than any other. It is the inescapable paradox of faith. If God is all-powerful and God is all-loving, then why does he allow pain? Why does suffering tear through the lives of the innocent? Why do the righteous endure the sharpest trials? This question is not new. It is ancient. It is universal. And the most profound, most agonizing, and most compelling answer in all of Scripture is found in the story of one man, a man named Job. His life is the lens through which we explore the purpose of pain and the enduring nature of trust. There was a man in the land of Uz, and his name was Job. He was the greatest man of the East, a true patriarch. He possessed 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, and 500 female donkeys. He had a vast household and many servants, but more than his wealth was his righteousness. Job was blameless. He was upright. He feared God, and he turned away from evil. His children, 7 sons and 3 daughters, would feast in their houses, each on his day. And when the days of feasting were completed, Job would rise early and offer burnt offerings for each of them. He would say, "It may be that my children have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." This was the diligence of his faith, the purity of his walk. This was the man God honored. On a certain day, the angels of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan, the adversary, came also among them. The Lord said to Satan, "From where do you come?" Satan answered the Lord and said, "From roaming about on the earth and walking around on it." The Lord then asked him a question of supreme confidence. "Have you considered my servant Job? For there is no one like him on the earth," God declared, "a blameless and upright man, fearing God and turning away from evil." Satan scoffed. He challenged the very premise of Job's faith. Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made a hedge about him? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. The accuser issued his ultimatum. But stretch out your hand now and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face. God allowed the test. The Lord said to Satan, "Behold, all that he has is in your power. Only do not stretch out your hand against his person." And the day of terror arrived. While Job's sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in the oldest brother's house, a messenger rushed in. "The oxen were plowing, and the donkeys grazing," he gasped, "and the Sabaeans attacked and took them. They also killed the servants with the edge of the sword. And I alone have escaped to tell you." Before he had finished speaking, a second messenger arrived. The fire of God fell from heaven and burned up the sheep and the servants and consumed them. And I alone have escaped. Before he had finished, a third. The Chaldeans formed 3 bands and raided the camels and took them away and killed the servants. Still the tragedy was incomplete. Before the third messenger had finished, a fourth arrived, his voice raw with despair. "Your sons and your daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house, and suddenly a great wind came from across the wilderness. It struck the 4 corners of the house, and it fell upon the young people." He paused, tears streaming down his face. "They are dead, and I alone have escaped to tell you." The loss was total. Wealth, livelihood, and most brutally, all 10 of his children. How would the righteous man respond? How would any soul react to such swift, comprehensive ruin? Job arose. He tore his robe. He shaved his head. The ancient signs of deepest grief. He fell to the ground. Not in anger, not in bitterness, but in worship. And the words he spoke echo across all human history, the ultimate response of faith. Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked I shall return there. He acknowledged the source of all things. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. And then his pronouncement, his surrender. Blessed be the name of the Lord. In all this, Job did not sin. He did not charge God with wrong. He passed the first test. Again, on another day, the angels came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also. The Lord said to Satan, "From where do you come?" And Satan gave his cynical reply, "From roaming about on the earth and walking around on it." God rebuked him. "Have you considered my servant Job? He still holds fast his integrity, although you incited me against him, to ruin him, without cause." Satan's reply revealed the cold logic of the tempter. Skin for skin. Yes, all that a man has, he will give for his life. He demanded a deeper wound. But stretch out your hand now, and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will surely curse you to your face. The Lord conceded, "Behold, he is in your power. Only spare his life." Satan departed from the presence of the Lord, and he struck Job with sore boils from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. Job took a shard of pottery to scrape himself while he sat among the ashes. His physical torment was immense, added to his spiritual and material ruin. Then, the final, heart-wrenching temptation came from his closest companion. His wife said to him, "Do you still hold fast your integrity? Curse God and die." Job looked at the one person who should have offered comfort and replied with dignity, "You speak as one of the foolish women speaks." He reminded her, and all of us, of a fundamental truth of life. Shall we indeed accept good from God, and shall we not accept adversity? In all this, Job did not sin with his lips. He passed the second agonizing test. He sat silently in the ashes, stripped bare, bereft of all comfort, all health, and all understanding. He sat, waiting. 3 friends of Job heard of all this tragedy that had come upon him: Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite. They made an appointment together to come to mourn with him and to comfort him. When they lifted up their eyes at a distance, they scarcely recognized him. They tore their robes and sprinkled dust over their heads toward the sky. And then, a silence that lasted for 7 days and 7 nights. No one spoke a word to him, for they saw that his pain was very great. This was true empathy, the silent acknowledgement of unspeakable suffering. After 7 long days, Job finally opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth. "Let the day perish on which I was to be born," he cried, "and the night which said, 'A male has been conceived.'" His anguish poured out, raw and unrelieved. Why is light given to him who suffers, and life to the bitter in soul? To those who long for death, but it does not come. He felt trapped. His fear had come upon him. He had no rest, no peace, no quietness. Job's lament was not a curse upon God, but a profound, desperate cry from the abyss. Eliphaz the Temanite was the first to answer. He began gently, acknowledging Job's past strength, but quickly moved to condemnation based on rigid theology. "Think now," Eliphaz challenged, "who, being innocent, ever perished? Or where were the upright destroyed?" His central tenet was simple and cruel. "As I have seen, those who plow iniquity and those who sow trouble harvest it." He presented suffering as a clear-cut transaction. If you suffer, you must have sinned. God is just, and you are being paid back for your hidden wickedness. He claimed his insight, came from a vision, a secret revelation. Can a mortal be more righteous than God? Can a man be more pure than his maker? Job responded, not to Eliphaz's logic, but to his lack of compassion. Oh, that my grief were actually weighed, Job pleaded, and laid in the balances together with my calamity. For then it would be heavier than the sand of the sea. He pointed to the pain itself as his witness. His words were reckless but honest. The arrows of the Almighty are within me, he mourned. Their poison drinks up my spirit. He was not denying God's power, but questioning his focus. What is man, that you magnify him, Job cried to the heavens, that you are concerned about him, that you examine him every morning and test him every moment? Job longed for God to simply look away and let him have peace before he died. Bildad the Shuhite spoke next. He was less gentle than Eliphaz, appealing directly to tradition. Does God pervert justice, or does the Almighty pervert righteousness? Bildad demanded. He implied, with chilling certainty, that Job's children were killed because they sinned. If your sons sinned against him, then he gave them over to the power of their transgression. He suggested a way out for Job. If you would seek God and plead with the Almighty, if you are pure and upright, surely he would rouse himself for you. This was the doctrine of remedial suffering. Confess and be restored. But Job knew he was innocent of the great sin they assumed. Zophar the Naamathite could bear Job's presumption no longer. He was outraged by Job's claim to innocence. Can you discover the depths of God? Can you discover the limits of the Almighty? Zophar thundered. They are higher than heaven. What can you do? He insisted that Job's suffering was less than he deserved. God was holding back. If only Job repented of his many sins, he would find peace. Job answered Zophar's arrogance with biting sarcasm. Truly then, you are the people, and with you wisdom will die. But I have intelligence as well as you, Job countered. I am not inferior to you. Job ceased arguing with his friends. Their human, flawed logic brought no comfort. His focus shifted entirely to the divine. He reached the pinnacle of his faith and his challenge. Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. He would only defend himself to God directly. Nevertheless, I will argue my case before him. Job desired a spiritual pause, a covenant from God that the torment would stop so he could speak plainly. Oh, that you would conceal me in the grave, Job cried, that you would hide me until your wrath subsides. Job's faith had matured from passive obedience to a fierce, unrelenting demand for truth. The three friends stopped answering Job because he was righteous in his own eyes. The debate had reached a deadlock. At this point, a young man named Elihu, the son of Barachel the Buzite, became enraged. He was angry at Job because he justified himself rather than God. He was also angry at the three friends because they had found no answer, yet had condemned Job. Elihu waited until the others were silent, for they were older than he. I am young in years, and you are old, Elihu began with respect. Therefore, I was timid and afraid to tell you what I think. But the intensity of the situation compelled him. I say, it is the Spirit of God and the breath of the Almighty that gives them understanding. Elihu provided a new, crucial perspective. Suffering is not always punishment for past sin. It can be a form of divine instruction. God speaks in one way or in two, Elihu explained, yet man does not perceive it. Sometimes a man is disciplined by pain or sickness. But why? To restrain his soul from the pit, Elihu stated, and his life from perishing by the sword. It is God's voice warning humanity, delivering them from destruction. Suffering can be a tool of grace, used to prevent a greater evil. It is a refinement. Elihu's final words focused on God's majesty, preparing the scene for the ultimate entrance. "Behold, God is exalted in his power," he proclaimed. "Who is a teacher like him? Who has appointed him his way?" Elihu reminded Job that no human has the right to question God's motives. "Remember that you should exalt his work, of which men have sung," he said. "Behold, God is great, and we do not know him, nor can the number of his years be discovered." As Elihu finished, "Then the Lord answered Job out of the whirlwind and said, Who is this that darkens counsel by words without knowledge?" The voice was not angry, but overwhelming, a challenge to the limitations of human understanding. "Now, prepare yourself like a man," the Lord commanded. "I will question you, and you shall answer me." The central question was simple, a direct assault on Job's ability to comprehend the universe. "Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Tell me, if you have understanding." The Lord continued his majestic interrogation, citing the incomprehensible scale of creation. "Who set its measurements, since you know? Or who stretched the line on it? On what were its bases sunk? Or who laid its cornerstone?" He spoke of the morning stars singing together, and all the sons of God shouting for joy. He spoke of the boundaries of the sea, or who enclosed the sea with doors when it went out from the womb. "I fixed my limit for it, and set bolts and doors, and I said, This far you shall come, but no farther, and here your proud waves shall stop." The questions continued, covering every mystery of the natural world. "Have you entered the storehouses of the snow, or have you seen the storehouses of the hail? Is it by your understanding that the hawk flies, stretching its wings toward the south? Does the eagle mount up at your command and make its nest on high?" God spoke of the behemoth and the leviathan, creatures so powerful, so untamed, that they represent the raw, magnificent power that exists outside human control and comprehension. The message was clear. You cannot control my universe. You cannot understand my heart. Trust me. Job had been silenced by majesty. He spoke briefly after the first torrent of questions. "Behold, I am insignificant. What can I reply to you? I lay my hand on my mouth." But after the full revelation of God's sovereignty, Job spoke a final time, a profound confession. "I know that you can do all things, and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted." He admitted his error, not the sin the friends accused him of, but the sin of presumption. "Therefore, I have declared that which I did not understand, things too wonderful for me, which I did not know." And finally, the ultimate surrender. "Therefore, I retract, and I repent in dust and ashes." When the Lord had finished speaking, the justice of the human debate was settled. The Lord said to Eliphaz the Temanite, "My wrath is kindled against you and against your two friends, because you have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has." The friends
the
had
Lord
wrongly
answered
claimed
Job
to know
out
God's
of the
motives
whirlwind
for
and said,
suffering. "Who is this
Job,
that
in his
darkens
honest
counsel
wrestling and protest,
by words
had spoken
without
a
knowledge?"
deeper truth
The
about
voice was
God's
not angry,
sovereignty.
but overwhelming.
The Lord commanded the
a challenge
friends
to the
go to
limitations
Job
of
offer
human
a
understanding.
sacrifice.
"Now,
And my servant Job
prepare
will pray for
yourself,
you,
like
for
a
I will
man,"
accept his
the
prayer,
Lord commanded.
not to deal with
"I
you
will question
according
you,
to your
and
foolishness.
you shall answer me."
Job,
The central
victim,
question
became
was
the
simple.
intercessor.
A direct assault
The Lord
on Job's
restored the
ability
fortunes of
to
Job
comprehend
when
the
he prayed
universe.
for his friends.
"Where were you
The act of
when I
forgiveness
laid the
was
foundation
the final
of the
step
earth?
of his healing.
Tell me, if
The
you
Lord
have
gave
understanding."
Job twice as much
The Lord
as he had
continued
before.
his majestic
His
interrogation,
brothers, sisters,
citing the
and former
incomprehensible
acquaintances
scale of
returned.
creation. and comforted
Who set
him
its measurements
and consoled
since
him
you know,
over all the
or who
adversity
stretched the line
that the
on it,
Lord had brought
on
upon
what
him?
were its bases sunk?
He had 7 more
or who
sons
laid its
and 3 more
cornerstone?
daughters. He
In
spoke
all
of
the
the morning
land,
stars,
no
singing
women were
together,
found so fair
and all the
as
sons
Job's
of God,
daughters,
shouting
After
for
this,
joy.
Job
He
lived
spoke of the boundaries of the
140
sea,
years,
or who
and saw his
enclosed the
sons
sea with
and his
doors
grandsons
when it went out
4
from the
generations.
He died,
I fixed my limit for
old
it,
and full of
set
days.
bolts and doors.
The story
And I
of
said,
Job does not
"This
offer an
far
easy
you
answer
shall
to
come,
suffering, but no
it offers
farther.
something greater,
And here,
the
your
complete,
proud waves
unconditional,
shall stop,
and sovereign truth
the questions
of God.
continued,
And that,
covering every
in the
mystery
face
of the incomprehensible,
world,
is the
have you
deepest
entered the
foundation
storehouses
of
of
faith,
the snow,
or have you seen the storehouses of the hail? Is it by your understanding that the hawk flies, stretching its wings toward the south? Does the eagle mount up at your command and make its nest on high? God spoke of the behemoth and the leviathan, creatures so powerful, so untamed, that they represent the raw, magnificent power that exists outside human control and comprehension. The message was clear. You cannot control my universe. You cannot understand my heart. Trust me. Job had been silenced by majesty. He spoke briefly after the first torrent of questions. Behold, I am insignificant. What can I reply to you? I lay my hand on my mouth. But after the full revelation of God's sovereignty, Job spoke a final time, a profound confession. I know that you can do all things, and that no purpose of yours can be thwarted. He admitted his error, not the sin the friends accused him of, but the sin of presumption. Therefore, I have declared that which I did not understand, things too wonderful for me, which I did not know. And finally, the ultimate surrender. Therefore, I retract, and I repent in dust and ashes. When the Lord had finished speaking, the justice of the human debate was settled. The Lord said to Eliphaz the Temanite, My wrath is kindled against you and against your 2 friends, because you have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has. The friends had wrongly claimed to know God's motives for suffering. Job, in his honest wrestling and protest, had spoken a deeper truth about God's sovereignty. The Lord commanded the friends to go to Job and offer a sacrifice. And my servant Job will pray for you, for I will accept his prayer not to deal with you according to your foolishness. Job, the victim, became the intercessor. The Lord restored the fortunes of Job when he prayed for his friends. The act of forgiveness was the final step of his healing. The Lord gave Job twice as much as he had before. His brothers, sisters, and former acquaintances returned and comforted him and consoled him over all the adversity that the Lord had brought upon him. He had 7 more sons and 3 more daughters. In all the land, no women were found so fair as Job's daughters. After this, Job lived 140 years and saw his sons and his grandsons 4 generations. He died old and full of days. The story of Job does not offer an easy answer to suffering. It offers something greater, the complete, unconditional, and sovereign truth of God. And that, in the face of the incomprehensible, is the deepest foundation of faith.